this video, we are going to cover how to use subtotal function. So on the navigation pane, click on this subtotal link button here. So basically I have this quite large table with all of these entries as you can see, and this table goes all the way down this spreadsheet. As you can see, we have 167 entries. And what I would like to do in this first part is just show you how to add up all these figures, which will be quite straightforward, and we will use a formula to do that. And also how to sort through some of this data so you can get the data where you want it. Because when it comes to sorting through data, you can make a few mistakes. And when you make a mistake in Excel, it can really be quite bad, I would say. Now, one thing I would recommend you do with any spreadsheet you get that has a large amount of data is to make a copy of that spreadsheet. And the reason why this is because if you do something to your data and you go through all of these various tools, try to sort your data out, and then you get to the point where you think to yourself that I've really messed around with the data so much, I wish I could have it back to the way it was. Well, technically speaking, if you haven't gone too far with it, you can hold Control down and press Z number of times to get it back to square one. But sometimes using this Control plus Z won't work because maybe the data is really messed up or you have done so many steps and it is not feasible because you might end up messing up your data even more. So what I would recommend you do is this. First of all, you can just create a new spreadsheet. So come to this plus icon here, and now you can just double click on this here and type in backup. Now go back to the original spreadsheet. Here if you want, you can just select the whole table, or you can just click here. It will select the whole spreadsheet, and all you need to do is just hold Control and press C to copy this spreadsheet and just come to the backup spreadsheet. Now all you need to do is just hold Control and press V to paste all of your data in this backup spreadsheet. And this will be your backup if you need to retrieve it. So back to the original spreadsheet, you can just click anywhere in this spreadsheet to get rid of this selection. And now we will make a start. So the scenario is I have this table here and it represents certain sales with regard to furniture. And first and foremost, what I would like to do is find the subtotals for each of these sales persons. So let's go ahead and write out the formula. So the formula in itself is going to be the number of units sold multiplied by the unit cost, which you can find in this table here. So now I will start off with my formula in this cell here. So equals, open parentheses, I'll select the number of beds from here multiplied by the unit cost of bed. And because I'm going to use the autofill to fill in the rest of this column, so I'll make it absolute. So I'll just click F4 to make it absolute, and I'll just close off this part of formula. And now I just want to add all of this up with the next part of the formula. So I have just repeated the process again, except I have moved to dining tables. So I'll just repeat that process again. My plus sign will go in, open parentheses, dining tables multiplied by cost per dining table. I'll make it absolute. Okay, so now my formula is ready. I can just press enter here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the cell here, double click on the right bottom side of this cell, and as you can see the whole column has been auto filled. So with this cell selected, I'll just right click here and format the cells as currency. So I'll just select the currency here. Now I'll click OK, and now it is formatted as currency. Now just come to home and central align this data. So just looking through my data here, I can see that they're all filled in. So now I am ready to move on to the next stage. So basically, when it comes to sorting your data, there's usually more than a few ways to do this. One of the most common ways that I have shown you so far is to do it through the use of a table. So you format your data into a table. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, just before we do that, a good way to select a large amount of data is to, instead of click holding and dragging down the column, you can just come to the cell here, hold Ctrl, Shift, and press the right hand arrow and then press the down arrow. It will select the whole table. So with this table selected, come to the Insert tab, click on this icon here which says Table, or what you can do is you can just come to Home, Format as Table, and select any of these table styles. So if I select this one here, and it says the same. And there is another way, a shortcut to do that. With your table selected, you can just hold Ctrl and press T. You will end up with the same dialog box that we have a moments ago. And now you can just click OK, and you can see that our data has been formatted as table. And as you can see, we have here these drop down menus where we can choose to sort our data. So if I just click here in this drop down, we can choose to sort our data to smallest to largest, or largest to smallest, or by a color, and other options. And if the column has words in it, then you can sort it alphabetically. But what I want to do is I want to do something a little bit different. I want to stay away from using a table. So I'll just press Ctrl plus Z to reverse all my actions. So what I would like to do is I'd like to start sorting through my data and quite possibly sort it by name in an alphabetical sense, or maybe by region as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just first sort all of this data by a region. Now all you have to do this is come to this first cell value here. You don't actually have to select the whole column itself, just the top cell value, then come to sort and filter. And I want to sort this into alphabetical order, so you can click on A to Z. And as you can see, it has sorted out our data to some degree, except you can see that the title we had up here have now disappeared. And this table here has actually been split. So if I scroll down through my table, I will find a piece of data down here, and I can see my titles have moved down to about halfway point, and I believe some of these figures are a little bit off. Even some of them might even register a 0 if I can find any. So as you can see that this has a 0 in results. So needless to say, it's not a really good result. I've gone ahead and messed up all of my data, so I'm going to undo my actions. I'll just press Ctrl plus Z one time. Now you might ask yourself, what went wrong? Well, obviously when I sorted the data, it did actually included these titles. Now what you need to do is you need to just select the titles like this and just separate them temporarily from the data below. But now when you do that, you might end up getting an error message, and you can just click OK to the error message and they'll move anyway. And the other problem was this table here. It actually got included into the sorting of data. Now it is a little bit beyond me as to why this actually happens. And I can just speculate that it might be because the table is below this title here. This is all I could really think of. So what I'll do is I will just move this table here quite simply by click holding and dragging while selecting the whole table, and I'll put it here. Now when I come to the first cell here, and I'll come back to the sort and filter again, and if I sort this again in an alphabetical order. You can see it's all been sorted, and now what I can do is I can just move these titles down here, and I can also move my table underneath my title. Right, so let's move on to subtotaling our data. First of all, we do need to select our tables. So I'll just come to this cell here. I'll hold Control, Shift, press the right arrow and press the down arrow to select the whole data. Just remember that you need to hold down the Control and Shift throughout the process. Now all you need to do is go to the data tab here and then come to the subtotal, and you will be presented with this prompt here. So what does this do for you? Well, basically, once you know how to do this, this tool will do a number of things. First and foremost, it will use the sum function just to add up the things and show you that this is the total for this part of the table, and this will make more sense when we go there. And we can also have some other functions that we can carry out as well. But for this tutorial, we will be sticking to sum, so I'll just select that. Then in this first drop down, you have the titles at the top of the table. So for this first example, I want you to click on beds and then just make sure that subtotal is selected and then just click on OK. Now you can see that your table has done something here. It has split into some pieces, and if you look closely to this data, you can see that what subtotaling has done, that it just totaled our beds that we wanted. So we wanted the subtotal for the number of beds sold. And it tells us that this person, Austin, which works in the East region, has sold 3 beds. And if you remember, we also checked the box for the subtotal. So we also have this subtotal here. But yeah, this subtotal is for all of the sales and not just for the sale of beds. Now, in all honesty, it's not that really useful, because all it done was just taken the number from above and put a total after that. So I'm just going to undo my actions by holding Control and pressing Z. So with my table still selected, I'll come to the subtotal once again. So now let's do something that is more useful. Let's break down the table into a certain regions and see what it looks like. So I'll just come up to the first drop down here and I'll select the region. And like I said, throughout this example, I will leave it on sum, and I'm also going to keep it to subtotal. And now I can click OK. Now if I scroll down my table, every now and then we have a break here which gives us the total for each region. And as you can see that we have these hash markings, so I'll just double click here to reveal my answer. And this text also doesn't fit in this cells, so I'll just double click to open this up. So what the subtotal has done for me here, it just subtotaled the totals for the each of the regions. So this is the total for east, this is the total for north, and this north, maybe there's some kind of typing error. And then we have the subtotal for south and west. Now you may have noticed this area on the left opens up when we started to use subtotal for our data. For instance, if I go to the number 1 here, it gives me the grand total for the whole table. Then if I come to the second option, it will give me a grand total and the total for each of the region. And finally, if I come to number 3, it basically goes back to the way it was before. Now to put your table back to the way it was before, all you need to do is you need to select the whole table again. So just come to this cell here, hold Control and Shift and press the right hand arrow and then the down arrow. And maybe you have noticed that it hasn't gone all the way down, and probably this is because we have these subtotals here. So We will just hold down Control and Shift and press the down arrow until we get to the last row. Now you may see that these two have not been selected. Well, it is not necessary to select these two because these are just the subtotals. So basically you just need to make sure that the bulk of the data has been selected. Now you can come to subtotal once again, then come down to remove all, and you can see that our table is back to the way it was. Except we still have this data down here at the bottom, which is not really doing any harm to us, but we can just select this data and just press delete. So once again come to this column here, hold down Control Shift and press the right arrow key and then the down arrow key. So with our table selected, come to subtotal, and this time we will select subtotal and beds, and I'll just keep this on region. So let's see what it looks like. I'll press enter. Okay, so as you can see, it just added up the beds here, and it also gives us the subtotal for this region. So that's all for the subtotal.